All right, so Noah, your question is about porcupine, which is this one, right? And you're asking, let me just pull up my chat again, okay? So you're asking about what do you use to show that the mouse either hits or contains the other object? In the examples, dot and S were used, okay? So for mouse, you can, it's already defined on mouse move here, right? So basically it's like when it moves into there. I don't know why it's paused. Pause. Yeah. So see how like when I move the mouse into the circle space that was created for his body, right? These kind of circle things, we're basically going to use that mouse event to do it, right? So let me pull this out of the way. So the right here, if you go to your documentation, there's the dot contains method, and it says takes in two numbers, which is going to be for us the x coordinate and the y coordinate, and returns true if it's represented by those numbers, right? So if you do spikes dot contains, then it will flag that as true. You know, like it basically like, oh, let me go back to this again, right? So you have your spikes, which is the stars, right? And you're going to say if spikes dot contains the mouse, basically that xy coordinate, then it's going to throw the spikes out, right? You can set that. So you have dot contains, if that answers your question. Okay? And if you want, I can write some of this code with you. If it'll help you to see how it's being used. So let me know. Put my chat window back in. Manage monitor. I'll just close it. There we go. Okay. All right. So if you want to, I don't know. Again, I don't know if that answers your question directly, or if you want to, if you want me to sit there and write some of the code with you for how it works, I can do that. Where's that? There it is. Okay. So let me start coding. Okay, so I'll just show you kind of part of what they're talking about. So most of the like spike stuff is straightforward, I guess. Like that it the roundness and the rotating and stuff. That was things that you did previously. Does something have to go after contains shape? I don't think you're going to do contains shape because contains shape. Let me pull up that documentation again. Contains shape was, I believe, more for returning having the entire shape. Takes in a shape if the shape is entirely contained inside of the shape. So if there's like a circle inside of another circle completely, then it will return true. Otherwise, it'll return false. You, instead of using contains shape, you basically want to use regular old contains, right? Contains just says takes in two numbers and returns true if that point is represented by those numbers. So if you didn't, you see how this one does like ring dot contains, okay? And that would allow you to, oh, hit shape. Does something have to go after hit shape? Let's look up hit shape. Okay? So here's hit shape. Takes in a shape and returns true if the input shape hits any filled portion of the shape that is mentioned. Okay, so yeah, so we don't want to deal with hitting and thing. We basically just want to say is the mouse contained inside of the spikes, and if it is, then it changes it to be like the longer spikes, and it makes his like eyebrows go down and all that. So, okay, so just regular old dot contains. So I'll let you try that out, and if you want to, I'm going to be here for probably at least another 25 minutes. So if you want to try writing the code and see how it goes, and then let me know where you're at. after spikes.contains, let's see. So after spikes.contains, the contains method, I'm going to pull up the docs again so you can see. Um, contains asks for an x and a y, right? So where'd it go? Contains, right? So basically, like if we're going to do that, you do something like this statement here. So yours is obviously spikes, not rings, right? Contains. And then you want to keep it general because this is going to be inside of the on mouse move. And that has parameters of mouse X and mouse Y, right? So where the mouse is located, you're basically going to put inside of your code for contains mouse X and mouse Y, close that off, right? And basically saying if the spikes contain whatever the mouse, coordinates are, right? If that's on the inside, then that would be true, and then you're going to run all the spikes stuff, right? Otherwise, it'll be the smaller spikes. So this is just going to be mouse X and mouse Y right there. And just let me know if you're curious about what would go inside of the if it's true, right? If inside of that statement, I can go over the essentially it's like the spikes, like how the spikes are going to react. Okay. All right, so you're asking if are you using an else if or else if the mouse is not touching the object. Yeah, so essentially you're going to have the if statement, kind of like what you see up right behind me here, this if the ring contains. Actually, what you see up here is kind of a good example, um, but you can just use a regular old else statement, right? So basically we're saying if spikes dot contains the mouse, right, the mouse x mouse y is true, then you're going to run the like big spikes with the down eyes, right? And instead of doing an else if like you see here, you don't have like another specific case. So instead of using else if, you can just say else. And what that'll do is it will cover kind of like everything else that's possible, right? Which is basically not being contained inside of the spikes, right? So use regular old else, and then you can put the code that has the small spikes like it starts off with. All right, I'm going to be signing off in about 5 minutes. So if you have any additional questions, any quick things you want to throw in about something else, or even this one, uh, let me know now because my daughter is going to be waking up soon, so I can't be in both places. So 5 more minutes. All right, so for seasonal tree, you're gonna need four different. Well, it's gonna be one if statement that will contain three extra else ifs. So don't do like an if for spring and then a different like if for summer, fall, and winter. You'll have an if spring label, right? Then do stuff, and then if summer, else if summer label, else if fall label, etc. Like so, it'll be one if statement that contains an if and then an else if, else if, else if for spring, summer, fall, winter. So it should just be one if statement with four different conditions for each of the labels. Yeah, so it's going to be essentially like you're going to say if the mouse is over spring when I click on it, then change the color of the tree to be the spring one. Else if it's on summer, do that one. Else if it's on winter, do that one. Else if it's on fall. So it'll be yeah, essentially three else ifs after the first if. And the order really shouldn't matter if you do spring and then summer or you do spring and then fall or fall first. It just it as long as you have an if with three else ifs after it. This would be another example of dot contains, basically saying like if the mouse is on top of that, and if you want to see the difference, let's look at the docs real quick. So if you do look at like dot hits, okay, the dot hits is takes two numbers and returns true if the point represented by them hits what is drawn. So essentially, like if you were drawing a circle on top of another circle, that's when you'd use the dot hits, right? So it's got to be like you're creating a new object. When you click on the one object, the other object is in the same space as the first one. Dot contains, right, when you click on that one. So the dot contains just says if the point represented, so if that mouse cursor for you is inside of the shape at all. So basically, if you're on top of that spring label, right, that's when it's going to go. Like right now, I'm contained. If you're going to use the dot hits, it's got to be like, oh, I'm going to create a circle on top of this, and then that would be hitting the spring object, and then that would be dot hits. And there's probably a little bit of overlap with them for certain criteria, but dot contains is much more general. You can use it in a lot more cases. Hey Dan, what's up? I'm here for a little bit longer if you have some questions. Dan, is there anything you want to go over? I know you were talking about the, I believe it was the mouse press problems. There you go. Nothing much. Just checking in, seeing what I can learn from watching. Yeah, so we were doing, I can go over 3.1.2 with you. We were just looking at some of the stuff in Unit 4, which has got some mouse click stuff in it as well. But let me pull up the 3.1. So let's see. Exercises. Oh, back to lessons. So you were in 3.1. I think you were working on the Fruit Ninja, if I remember correctly, looking at your code. So this is the Fruit Ninja one where it just slices the thing in half, right? Fruit Ninja. Okay. So let me see what your question was again. I got too much stuff up on my screens. 3.12 exercise on the mouse press functions. Okay, so this one doesn't have mouse press in it. I don't know if you want to go over this one or if you want to go over one of the other ones in 3.1. So the Fruit Ninja one uses on mouse release, right? And the other one is on mouse drag. So you can see that like when I just click on this, you can't see it obviously, but right now I'm clicking without moving the mouse and nothing's happening. That would be on mouse press, right? Mouse drag would be when when you click and hold down the left click and then move the mouse. That's on mouse drag, right? And then when I let go of my mouse click, that's on mouse release, right? So there's kind of three different functions that you can use depending on what you're trying to do. This one is all about like slicing through the fruit. Okay, so the idea here is that mouse X and mouse Y, if I like hover over this, if you take a look down here in the bottom right corner at the X comma Y is that 337 400. That would be the location of the mouse that would be fed into the mouse drag, right? So if we wanted something to happen, it's going to see that if I left click and I hold down the mouse and I start moving it, it's going to start feeding in these numbers down bottom here into my function, so that it can like keep track of where the sword is that's slicing through the fruit. So I'll do this one with you. Let me pull up my semi-completed one because it'll be a little easier to talk about it. So if I go back, Fruit Ninja, where's it at? 3.1, here it is. Okay, so if you want, I'll do this one with you just so you can kind of get an idea, and I'll explain it as I'm going. It says in here in the hints, the center Y of the blade should be the canvas width, which if you read is always 400 wide, minus the current X value, right? So they're kind of giving you that hint there about how to keep track of it. Okay, so here's what it's going to kind of look like. So the first thing you're going to do is when the mouse drag is done, you can see that up here. Let me see if I can find it. This is the main watermelon, the seeds. Oh, here it is, the blade, right? So you can see that if you look at the blade code, that it draws the blade, but at the end it sets the visibility to be false, because unless we're clicking, we don't want to see the actual blade, right? So its visibility is turned off, okay? And so what we're going to do is on the mouse drag, the first thing we want to do is to make the blade visible, right? Because the moment I start dragging, you should see that blade. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to write is that if I go to the thing that I called blade, right, that's the name of the variable. This piece right here is the visible variable, right? So I'm going to say dot visible. Okay, and then I'm going to set it to be true, right? And that's going to make it so that when I mouse drag, that it turns on the actual blade, right? So that's the first thing that should happen. The second thing that should happen on the mouse drag is that the X value, you can see that, where's the blade at? Right here, okay? Let me actually pull up something for you so you can see. So for a polygon, right? If I go to my documents, okay, for polygon, oh, it's actually right here, okay? That there's this X and Y. You can see that this is how it keeps track of polygons. To create a polygon with points x1, y1, x2, y2, x3, y3, etc. Right? So this one they did 3 sets of coordinates, okay? And there's also, I'm seeing if I can show it on here. There are no required values for polygons. I was trying to see if it's on here. Center. Ah, there it is. Right, so you can see that there's like the center of each of the shapes, right? So what I can say is that the blade, okay, is going to be, if I talk about its center X, okay, that's always going to be the center of the blade is always going to be the mouse coordinates X, right? So I'm basically saying the center of the blade is going to be the mouse, right? Wherever the mouse's X coordinate is, that's where the blade's going to go. And then it tells you in the hints up here that center Y, right? So I'm going to say blade dot center Y is not going to be mouse Y. Instead, it tells you that center Y should be the canvas width, which is 400, minus the current X of the mouse, which we just saw as mouse X, right? So that's going to keep track of like the blade, right? By making the blade visible and then saying move the blade on the X coordinate just wherever the mouse is, and the Y based on this hint is going to move there, right? So that's kind of like how we're using this one. So you always use the dot parameter to change the, yes, yeah, exactly. So the dot parameter is like, we're saying here's the object, which is the blade, and then which of these things that are in here do you want to change? We could do like a dot fill or a dot border width, dot, right? Those are all of the different parameters, and we're just changing those, and they're called functions, right? We're kind of performing functions, right? So that's all you have to do for the blade to make it visible, right? And then for the title text, the title text is, you can see again, if you go up here, there's this thing called title, right? And it uses the label command, right? And so we're going to actually change the value, which is this piece right here. We're going to say title.value, which essentially is going to be the word fruit is the value, okay? And we're going to set that to be equal to Fruit Ninja. Okay. And that's all you have to do. So now when I run through, the word fruit changes to Fruit Ninja because I'm doing a drag, right? If you take a look at your code, this is what would run. Let me try to run it, okay? It's doing that, right? And, but it's not, a couple things are not happening. Wait, there's one thing I want to look at. Oh, I have to do one more thing, but I'll talk about that in a sec. So if you take a look at what happens when I let go of the mouse, oh, it actually did let go. On mouse release. The blade's supposed to stick around, I thought. Okay. You can see that what we're not doing is we're not doing the like that centerpiece coming out. Okay, so we have to add one more thing. And if you take a look up here, it has this thing called watermelon cover. right? And watermelon, it says covers the sliced part of the watermelon, and it kind of draws the inside of the watermelon and all that. So that one is also currently set to oh, I'm sorry, it's not set at all. So this is currently visible, right? The way that this is drawn is kind of weird. Is like it's drawn in parts, right? There's that top half of the oval, the bottom half of the oval, right? And then they threw this cover on top, which is covering the sliced parts. We basically want the cover to go away when this blade goes through, so we're going to change watermelon cover, its visibility, okay? Visible to be equal to true, right? I'm sorry, to be equal to false, right? Right. And if you notice, like, it doesn't say anything about visibility in watermelon cover, but that's because if you don't write anything about visibility, it always assumes it's true. So you can see, like, in the blade one, the last statement was visibility equals false. Since watermelon cover doesn't have a visibility, you assume that it's true already, right? And then we set it to false, okay? So why wouldn't you in that case say title.label instead of title? Okay. So the question that you're getting to is about why didn't we use the word label? And the reason for that is that we wanted to do not label is kind of like the general command. Okay, and let me see if I can pull up the doc again. Oh, it's right here. Let me see if I can pull up label. See, if you take a look at label, right? Label is the general command, and you need to be more specific than just saying label. You need to say which part of all of this label stuff do you want to change. So when you write title.label, it would be like, okay, great. Do you want to change the value? Do you want to change center X, center Y, the boldness, right? So we actually have to say title, which you know that title is a type of label, right? And then we need to be specific and say title dot, center X or center Y. So the value, title dot value, is to be specific and say, go to that label, and I want you to change the label from being ninja to fruit ninja, or fruit to fruit ninja, right? So that's why we have to be more specific with title dot value, okay? And no, how do you change the opacity of the background? So is that for the well, I mean, I guess I can show you with this one right here. So this one has background is Peru. Okay. Let me see about app.background. App.background. Main watermelon. Do you have a specific one? No, because I know this one is. Because I'm pretty sure there's a value for Peru. Because that's an RGB. Opacity background. Let me see. Okay, this is for the meteorite, but you can show it here. Okay, let me pull up meteorite because I think that one's going to be a little easier. Dan, if you want to try out the rest of that one, essentially, let me just kind of summarize what you got left to do. So what I did here was now the blade will slice through. What you'll have left... Oh, it actually has on mouse release done already. That's why. Oh, that's all you have to do for this one. It already did the mouse release. So you can see that in on mouse release, it's basically saying that when you let go of the mouse, that the visibility changes to false, the watermelon cover changes to true, and then the title changes back to fruit, right? So that one's kind of working now. I thought it was going to have you write this as well, okay? So that's all you have to do for that one. A lot of the other ones are the same, but you just have to think about whether or not, like, obviously this one uses mouse release and mouse drag. The next one might use mouse click or something like that. So if you want to try out one of the other ones and let me know how that works, I will still be here for a little bit. Okay. All right. So meteorite. Which one is meteorite? Cool. Like I said, I'm here every Thursday. So, and if you have questions before then and you want to be working on it, I will. I can answer emails back and forth because I can always see what your code is. So give it a shot as best you can, and then I can help you out. Okay, so we want to, in meteorite, move your cursor over the meteorite. I haven't done all of these, so some of them I have to read. So app.background, I'm assuming, do not touch. Do you need to change the opacity? Move the cursor around randomly. Doesn't say anything about changing the opacity of the background. Essentially, this one looks like I would look at this one and say you probably want to not change the opacity of the background. You want to put a red square over it, right? If the hand intersects the meteorite, which it does, right? There it is. Show the alarm, so that's up here, and rotate the alarm lights. Otherwise, restore the original background. Yeah, so there's really no need for opacity change of the background. Let me look something real quick. I have too many screens open. Oh, I got to move to that one. Exercises. It's there it is. Okay. So this one's basically going to be, if I were to summarize what's happening, on mouse move. So the hand, obviously, like the hand is the, where's hand at? Here it is. So there's the oval, right? We're basically going to say that that's going to, on the mouse move, that's going to track X and Y, which they have. Okay, and then we're basically going to, this is a hits shape one. So we're basically going to say if the hand hits the meteorite, then, app background. So you're not going to change the opacity of the background. You're just going to change it to that fire brick color. And that's all you're going to do, because then it's alarm, like, yeah. Otherwise, you'll change it back to that gray. So there's no need to change the opacity. You're just going to change the color to that brick red, right? Obviously, like, you can see that instead of the background being this tan color, it turns to red. And then when it moves off, if it's not hitting the meteor, then it's going to change it back to this color. So it's kind of an if-else statement, where if the light hits the meteor, the app.background will change from its like RGB color to fire brick, and then you'll have to turn on the alarm cover and the alarm lights, and then the rotate angle and all that. So no need for opacity changes here. All right, so I have to hop off. So if you have any other questions, give these a try, and just send me an email when you need an update. I'll still be around via email. I just have to hop off the live stream so I can go get some family stuff done. So I'll be monitoring my email today and tomorrow. So work on whatever you're going to work on, and let me know if you have any questions.